And thanks to all of you who have donated tonight. We really appreciate it because there's a lot of love that has gone into this place, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. And so any donation that you can offer us would be greatly appreciated. There is a donation jar out by the front door. And if you could please hold your questions until the end of PMH's talk, that would be great. So our beautiful friend, P.M.H. Atwater, has had 3 near-death experiences within 3 months in 1977. This turned her life around completely. The following year, she turned to research because of what she was told to do during her 3rd episode and became one of the original in the field of near-death studies, completing 18 books on or related to the subject, with a research base of nearly 5,000 adult and child experiences. Some of her findings have been verified in clinical settings, among them the prospective study done in Holland and published in Lancet Medical Journal. Her latest work, The Forever Angels, Near-Death Experiences in Childhood and Their Lifelong Impact, challenges the entire field and changes the conversation about life and death, reincarnation, and the life continuum. So without further ado, our beautiful P.M.H. Atwater.
Our topic is principally whatever, we've been hearing about all kinds of predictions, all kinds of tales. Hey, they're here. What we have been preparing for is here. So that's the title of my talk. What we've been preparing for. And I want to start it out with a little clip. 12 years ago, I was in Moscow, Russia. I was standing on a bluff near the foot of one of Stalin's greatest architectural masterpieces. And I was looking out off the bluff, seeing the river and the city, and thinking to myself and saying to myself, I'm so glad Stalin is gone. Thank God for Moscow. And I heard a voice to my right, just as clear can be. And this voice said, Stalin is back. His name is Putin. I didn't know what that meant really at the time. I do now. And I want you all to know that I stand with Ukraine. And I'm sure we all do. In order to focus on the here and now, I want to give you a little bit of history so that you can better understand where we are now in the turning of the world, and especially the people on the world, people who live here and been here and will come here. I want you to know a little bit at least about the great stages of what are called the root races. Maybe you know something about the root races. Let me quickly read. All early cultures and indigenous groups have told stories and had prophecies about times of radical earth changes and the emergence of a more intelligent, capable human. These cycles of destruction and upliftment were progressive and followed a general pattern everywhere they were present, as if such teachings were part of a grand plan. The 7 progressions described in Theosophy are similar to this ancient library of information. So are the descriptions of Edgar Cayce. In fact, the Theosophy version and the Edgar Cayce version are very, very, very similar. The difference is Edgar Cayce takes you further back. He takes you further back in time. And this is what this is, all of the root races. I know you might not be able to see it from where you are, but according to Edgar Cayce, the cellular version of the root race, who and what we are, began about 16.4 billion years ago. Theosophy doesn't take it back that far. This is the Big Bang to single-celled organisms, consciousness, action, reaction. However, we were emerging at that time, according to Edgar Cayce, as thought forms. We came in as solid thought forms, not bodies like we have now, but thought forms. And that was the first to the second root race, depending on how you look at it. The Theosophy version begins about 820 million years ago, larger and more complex life forms. We now have more of a stimulus response. Our bodies now are being more formed in the sense of the astral and the etheric. We're now having more forms. Then we come into the familiar. That is getting closer to the second root race. Begins about 41 million years ago. Interrelationships, independence, advancement of the early humans, a lot of stimulus, individual activities and thoughts and deeds. So we're getting now into that idea of a form that is fully functional, bright as a penny, and doing things. And we get into the tribal, the second root race, the third, the cultural root race begins at about 102,000 years ago. We're getting closer now to Lemuria and Mu. We're getting closer now to Atlantis and the Azores. When I say things like Atlantis, when I say things like Hyperborea, things like Lemuria, I'm sure that's starting to click all over. Some of you are saying, yeah, I remember that. I've read books about that. Maybe I've had dreams about it, visions about it. I come from Lemuria, or I come from Atlantis. So we're connecting now with life forms that you will respond to, I suppose, more and more of you, and say, oh, yeah, I know more about that. And we're coming now more into the fourth root race. We're getting down now into the planetary root races. We're getting more to the times we are living now. Now, when we're talking about root races, I want you to get an idea of the evolution of the human race. Because we're getting now down to the galactic and the fifth root race. I'm going to spend a little time here talking about the fifth root race. Began quite some time ago, but it is now rising. It's now advancing. It's now coming more into maturity. And I believe we need to know more about those advancements. You get a hold of the Beyond the Indigo Children, the book I wrote. It goes really in depth about the root races and where we are now with the root races. We've got a lot of psychics saying, well, you know, the sixth root race is here and the seventh root race. You know, we're talking about the indigo kids and so forth and so on. Well, we've seen a few of them, but not that many. What we are seeing is the rise of the fifth root race. So I want to spend a little bit of time talking about that fifth root race, because I believe that's us. That's where we are. That's how we are maturing as human beings on the planet. It's that sense that as human beings on this planet, we have come a long way. As souls, as beings, we've gone through a great deal. Those of you who've had a near-death experience, those of you who have had a threshold experience, those of you who have had a very enlightening dream or experience, you'll remember some of this, maybe a lot of this, and you'll say, oh yeah, I was there. I remember this, or I remember part of this. I hope in that sense that you're looking at the world now and you're saying, wait a minute here. I thought we had matured. Looks to me like we're acting like a bunch of idiots. So let's take a better look at now. And the kinds of things that are going on now and in the few years into the future, realizing that we as human beings have come a long way. And I want you to know that 500 years ago, something very dramatic happened to the human race. His name is Christopher Columbus. 500 years ago, when he came, and he split the world's consciousness. Split it right in two. If you get this book, 1493, you'll get a good glimpse of what he did. He brought us slavery. He brought us mangoes. He brought us all kinds of interesting fruits, nuts, vegetables, and ways of slavery we never thought of before. All via Christopher Columbus and his discovery of the New World. And in doing that, again, he gave us a way of looking at the world we never had before. And after he did that, slavery became legal and profit-bearing in Africa. In Africa. It was the Africans who sold Africans into slavery. Throughout our British traders, throughout various other parts of the world. You want to bring it up to date. During the times of slavery in the United States, there was no time during the slavery here in the United States that we could even match the slavery that was in Cuba. So we have an opportunity now to take a broader look at ourselves and these great cycles that are going on. Because when we're talking about great cycles, the movement of the root races, yes. How we came into the earth world really as spirit beings, and over time grew forms and bodies, and were able to use them. We had colonies and civilizations and great works of art, Lemurian, Atlantis. And as we moved closer and closer to the kind of civilization we have today, all of it in rhythm. We've never once been out of rhythm with the advance and movement through the earth plane of spirits in bodies. Because that's what we are. And that's what I've noticed throughout these 44 years of doing near-death research. I've noticed it again and again and again. We come back, most of us, not all of us, with thoughts and knowing that we are co-creators with the Creator. That's our job, that's who we are, that's what we do. And there is that greater and larger and bigger sense of rhythm. This incredible rhythm. I certainly found this with the Russell work. I think of all of the cases I've ever heard of, let alone mine, Walter Russell's having a near-death experience or something like it every 7 years until his great illumination. That was just woke me up. It's like, whoa, right here in Virginia, near us, was this incredible genius, Walter Russell, and what he did to continue the work, to help all of us realize we are spirits in bodies. Ways of using that and knowing that. The classes he holds, or did, and we still study them today. Anybody that Walter and Leo Russell put together, these classes anybody can take that are very, very helpful. But being able to through that viewpoint, through incredible viewpoints now, be able to see this rhythm. What we have been preparing for is here now. Because we've been preparing for a long time for a big shift. And that's where we are now. Shift time. I hope you all have pencil and paper because I'm going to give you a lot of dates and material. What we are seeing now in the United States I don't want to get too far ahead of myself here. We are seeing this pattern. 2020 through 2050. This is the pattern. I take this. Yes, I'm a good researcher. I take the combination of my studies of business forecasting, astrology, science, near-death research, birthing cycles, and climatic change. Birthing cycles, and it's a big wow. If you ever get this book, Generations, The History of America's Future, from 1584 through 2069, William Strauss and Neil Howe. Fabulous book. Absolutely fabulous. So from my study of all of these put together, this is what I can present you. And then I'm going to give you details from this. This is a basic plan, 2020 to 2024. This is the Pluto return for the United States. If you do the astrological chart of the United States, our country is having a Pluto return. If you know anything at all about Pluto, you know that Pluto means death of the old, birth of the new. It's a sign of Scorpio. It's where you have to face what's going on, like it or not, and do something. Scorpio won't sit still. There is no middle ground with Pluto. No such thing as middle ground. If you call yourself a middle person, forget it. It's either high or low. There's no middle. People don't have Pluto returns. The orb's too great. But countries can. And ours is. It is the fourth turning of our economy. The fourth turning is crash time, or close to it, where we come to that point where we must face all that we've ever done and all that we want to do, what works, what will not work, and what may work. It's not like anything else you've lived through before, including the Great Depression. 2026, I'm just going to give you the broad view, and then we'll talk about it a little more maybe. 2026, the Pluto return is 2020 through 2024. Isn't it interesting that's a presidential term of office? So guess who ushered in this? It was Trump. Guess who's going to usher it out? Biden. But it's that presidential term, 2020 to 2024. That means, quite literally, that our government is going to turn around. Maybe in ways we like, maybe not, but that turn will take us to new and different places, regardless of whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. I could care less what your political status is. I'm looking at the energy turn. Because Pluto will not allow you to quit or stop or beg for a recess. Pluto says crunch, 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 and it will keep crunching and until you make up your mind, or it makes your mind up for you. 2026, Neptune leaves Pisces, nothing hidden, old patterns revealed. In 2026, we go back to the energy of the Civil War. I'm talking energy patterns here. So in 2026, we're going back to the energy of the Civil War. By the way, this directly hits the chart. All these things that are happening in 2026 directly hit the chart of Prince William in England. So it's going to be very interesting here. 2020 to 2029. That's when we have our first taste of real Aquarian energy with the birthing of children, all of them, with this incredible Pluto still active in their chart, but now in the sign of Aquarius. This is the first time we ever will have an opportunity to really see Aquarian energies rooted and just planted in the human family. 2013 to 2029, these are the fateful times. Believe it or not, the birthing book, Generations, talks more about this than you can imagine. This is the time of climate change. Protection ends. It is the heating of the planet. During this particular time frame, 2030, the full force of climate change, global shifts, slower moving energy, big picture comes into view, temperatures rise, changes to the global working class. 2050, this is where we have our big awakening. Birthing cycles shift finally to higher states of consciousness. So, let's take a bigger look at that. Let's talk about the here and now, because I know you're all going to want these dates down. We know now that between 2020 and 2024, we in the United States are moving in a different way with a different energy pattern. We already talked about that a little bit. This is the time of the great shifting in the United States. We've made it this far. It's now 2022, halfway in that great change. But now things are getting more intense. So I'm giving you dates. Dates where the energy will be incredibly intense. That can be critical. That can be joyful. Depends on what you want to do with it. But you're going to see it all over the world, and especially in our country. The first critical date was February 22. That, my friends, was the day Russia entered Ukraine with the tanks and the bombs and the airplanes. The next date of that kind of critical movement is April 30. You want to write this down, April 30. Next date this year, July 11. Next date this year, September 26. The energy on September 26th will be of such interest that it will be 30 years ago. We will have seen something like this. 30 years later, September 26th, we're getting it again. So what happened 30 years ago, September 26th, take a good look at that. We're getting that lunation and that energy back in spades. October 9 this year, we're getting more of a bump that day from Pluto. December 29 this year, that's the last of this 2022. Rolling now into 2023. May 2nd, October 11, only two of that intense energy in 2023. We're loaded with it this year. We're going to get it and get it and get it again. In 2024, the last of this kind of cycle, we're only going to get, well, we have 3 dates in 2024. May 3, October 12, and November 10. And there's something very, very special about 2010. That could be an extra powerful day. Now, I want to take another look at these days because they are so Pluto-driven. Pluto meaning that incredible energy. Doesn't care positive, negative. All it cares is what we accomplish or what we fail. How we succeed or how everything falls apart. Again, there's no middle. Excuse me just a little bit. Okay, I want to spend a little time on 2026. Indeed, a fateful time because pardon my shuffling through all of these papers. I thought it had all in order. Apparently, I did not. Yeah, okay, 2026. We're talking spring of 2026. We're talking the spring equinox. We will be having the major planets all rising at the same time. We're talking minutes, we're talking moments. Doesn't matter the sign they're in. We're talking the movement of these planets all rising at the spring equinox at the same time during retrograde Mercury. God is giving us a Louis here. We're getting a real twist. So take a good look in all of your plans on the spring equinox, March 21, 22 in 2026. If I were you, I would not plan on a spring vacation those dates. I would not plan on buying a house. I would be very careful. Good time for prayer. Good time for meditation. Good time to get together in families and have maybe a nice dinner. Good time to spend with your children, read books. But be careful of anything big. Who knows what's going to happen during that time frame? Nobody does. Got another biggie coming. before we get to 2050? Well, you knew that there would be extra stimulus along the way, didn't you? 2045, Uranus will be directly opposite Pluto. Uranus, the great change agent. Pluto, the great destroyer, are going to be opposite each other. That creates a tension. It certainly will be a time of sudden awakenings. It's a time when the birthing cycles shift toward higher states of consciousness. Our kids now, well then, not now. Now we have the adapters. Thank God. They're adapting to things. But during those times, during the times to come, we're going to see the kinds of change and the kinds of movement that we do not have historical records for. We have nothing really to turn back on except what we know ourselves to be. For we are souls wearing a body. And it is time then for us to be who and what we really are. You know the importance of threshold events? Threshold event is where you go through either a spiritual change, a near-death experience, a meditation change, whatever kind, that enables you to see beyond anything you've seen before. What it does literally is it enables you to see beyond the 4%. Probably didn't think in terms of 4%, did you? Did you know that science has discovered that 96% of everything you see, including in this room, is either dark energy or dark matter. We can only see, look around, we're only seeing 4% of what's here. Maybe 5%. Walk out the door, drive your car down the road, and I guarantee you, you're only seeing 4 to 5% of what's there. The rest you cannot see unless somehow you've gone through one of these threshold events that enables you to see further of the more of the view. It's all there. It's all there. We only see 4 to 5% of it. It's all there. This is why so many people who go through a spiritual event or meditation are thought to be crazy afterward. Or you feel crazy. Because suddenly you see more than you did before. And you think, what's the matter with me? Well, nothing's the matter with you. You're just seeing more of what's there. We live in a 4% world. I don't care who you are, and I don't care how smart you are. We live in a 4% world. Maybe 5%. That's why it is so valuable to be in some kind of spiritual class or some kind of meditation group or, some way of knowing, some way of feeling, some way of realizing that there's really a whole lot more to this world than what we think and what we feel and what we touch, what we see. Wow. And how do we keep our sanity in all of these changes that are here now and are coming more and more? I'm going to teach you right now. Everybody stand up. If you can. If you can't, I have some people here who can't. Ah, yes. You're standing. Right now, just relax your arms and put them down. Head straight, arms relaxed. Take a breath in. Breathing out. Do it again, only do it a little different. Breathing in. Breathing out, then swallow. We'll do that again. We're just standing here, just standing. Feet flat on the floor, arms down. Breathing in. Breathing out. Swallow. That swallow clears out the synapses in the brain and enables you to think clearly. You want to sit down? Go ahead and sit down. Just that. So if you get confused, if you get rushed or hurried or scared or whatever, do that. Simple, isn't it? Swallow. Clears the synapse in the brain. Let me tell you something else that's very, very clear and easy that will help you to feel better every day, as often as you want. I want you to take your thumb right now, put it sort of in the middle of your palm, and curl your fingers over your palm. That's all you're doing. Kind of put your hands at the groin area and just breathe. That's all you have to do. Breathe. See how you feel. How do you feel with your hands in that position? Okay, release your hands. Now, I want you to make a little circle, but close the fingers. Are we all sort of doing this? Put your hands down. And just breathe. See how you feel. Release. Now, put your thumb and index finger together again, but this time leave the other fingers out. You all got it? Put it down in the groin position and just breathe. Let it go. How do you feel about this? Any voices here? Anybody want to comment? What? Which one was calming? There's a progression. You felt a progression. And ended up calming. How about, yes? You felt a rush of energy. You heard a sound. Okay. How about the last one? Like a wave. Anybody want to make any other comments? You felt like a fish in water. It got more and more comfortable. A comfort area. Okay. I want to talk about what you've been doing. It certainly is part of yoga. But the yoga teachers never tell you what you're really doing. When you bury that thumb, that forces the air up to the high lobes. That's where a lot of women breathe. Anybody who wears high heels, that's where you're breathing. You're breathing up here because you're off balance. If you have the fingers open, making that little circle with the thumb and the forefinger, but you're burying the hand, burying your fingers, that's mid-chest breathing. That's where a lot of men breathe. But if you have this circle, thumb and index finger, and all the fingers open, all of the lungs are open. To the point where you are breathing in full balance with your energy. You are, in effect, building the power of your lungs. So I say to everyone, who's watching you when you're walking? You know? Who's watching you when you're watching television? Build up your air. Build up your lungs. You don't have to be in a yoga class. You don't even have to think about it. It's automatic. And it works absolute wonders. Isn't it wonderful to go through life now with such simple power? We have incredible changes ahead of us. No, it's not ever going back to the way it was before. Forget about it. Not doing it. We're moving into new territory. We're moving into new twists and turns that we've never seen before and done before. We have even no history of. What's it? How do we handle this? To keep our heads straight. It's so simple. Even just straightening ourselves. Even just doing that. Taking a moment off to just be. Training yourselves to be able to balance no matter where you are and what you're doing. By the simple hand motions. You don't have to go to class for that. You don't have to read a book for that. You got it right here. We did it here tonight. Most people who go through a threshold event, something like a near-death experience or a spiritual transformation, they come back realizing that they are a spirit wearing a body. They are co-creators with the Creator. That's who we are. And everything around you is living and breathing. Even rocks, even concrete. Because it's moving. There's nothing here that isn't moving right now. We're just used to it. So we don't feel it. But everything moves. Enjoy the move. Be a kid again. Realize how incredibly powerful you are. And no matter what happens, stop. Look straight ahead. Take a breath. Release the breath. Swallow. And you will know your next step. You're never alone. We are never alone. We have the power. Don't ever forget it.
And that is why I say that this course of lectures is to give everyone the knowledge of God's creative processes, the means he employs, the balance which he demands, the separateness of father-motherhood into fathers and mothers, which must interchange in balance in order to unite and as one. And that applies to every corpuscle of the body as well as it applies to every individual entity as a whole.